Welcome everybody. I'm joined today by some brilliant suppliers. It's going to be a supplier-led panel, obviously, where we'll be talking destination and product updates and travel trends. I'm Jennifer Morris, news editor at TTG Media, and today I'm joined by Sally Cope, regional general manager at Tourism Australia, Lisa McCauley, managing director at Gold Medal, and Donna Jeevesons, sales and marketing director at the Travel Corporation. So just to give you a bit of an overview as to what we'll be discussing today, we're going to talk about the past year in travel, if that's possible to synopsise, what the big challenges have been and how the Australian tourism industry has responded. We'll talk about destination updates, including when borders may reopen, new product to be aware of, how existing product has adapted since the pandemic began, and which markets are likely to be the first to return to Australia. We'll also be talking about travel trends, covering what customers will be looking for in their next Australian holiday, how the booking process will be different going forwards, and what changes suppliers will be making to accommodate these trends. We'll also be synopsising from Tourism Australia, Gold Medal and the Travel Corporation about how they've been supporting travel agents with online training opportunities, fan trips, booking incentives, offers and competitions. Now, as always, we love this to be a kind of interactive event, so you can ask your questions in the comment panel, and please do that, and we will come to you as and when throughout the session or at the end if we don't get around to that. So if we can try and kick off on the past year in travel, Sally, I think you're probably best placed, obviously, with Tourism Australia to maybe give us a bit of an overview about where we are with things. So the borders have obviously been closed to tourists for over a year now. How has the Australian tourism industry responded to the coronavirus crisis? Has it used the time to develop destinations and product offerings ready for the restart?
Well, what a year. When the World Health Organization actually declared it was a global pandemic, I was actually in Australia, and it didn't take very long for the government to bring in the international border restrictions and stop international movement in and out of the country. On the back of that, we at Tourism Australia really quickly realised that we had to do two things. First of all, we were determined to keep the lights on internationally. So all the international offices have spent the last year doing a lot of content marketing, just really priming consumers about keeping the dream alive of their next big trip to Australia, doing lots of work with our travel agent partners around the world. But in Australia, we turned our attention to domestic marketing, which isn't normally in our remit. Mm-hmm. And we've spent the last year doing lots of different campaigns, really inspiring Australians who are traditionally very big, strong travellers to travel at home this year or holiday here this year. It's been hugely successful, and that's been a real lifeline for our industry. So the industry is actually doing relatively well in Australia. In fact, this morning I heard domestic air capacity is at 98% of what it was before the pandemic hit. So they're doing okay, but we do know that the domestic market alone will not fill the gap. But the message is it means that the industry is vibrant, it's fresh, it's open, there's new product developments, new hotels opening and so on. It hasn't been sort of locked up and mothballed for the year, which is good to know.
That's brilliant. We'll definitely come more onto the kind of the product updates that have taken place. I don't know if you have much information on how you guys have been able to keep in touch with travel agents in other countries in the UK or other overseas locations.
We have the Aussie Specialist Training Program, the online training programs, had a real boost this year. I think it's actually been really heartening. A lot of travel agents, particularly in this country, have used a lot of their time to educate themselves on destinations, and we've had an increase in the number of people registered for the training program. And Alison Lee, who is our Aussie Specialist Trainer here in the UK, has just created so many different inventive ways of communicating with people in online and virtual worlds. So I think at last count, she's averaging about 1,000 travel agents each quarter that she's been training over the last year. So people are using the time fruitfully to really dive deep on the destination and learn a bit more, which has been good.
Okay, brilliant. Sounds like people have been capitalising on that. But as you say, yeah, I note that in Australia, I think there's been some strong support from the government for agents, and maybe a bit more so than we've seen over here. But that's a bit newsy. We'll stick to the product and destination updates. So Lisa and Donna, the pandemic has obviously caused endless obstacles for the UK travel industry to work around. But what, in your opinion, have been the biggest, what's been the biggest challenge and the biggest challenges, and how have you guys, as tour operators, kind of overcome those or managed them? Lisa, I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. I think it's all, it's been very well documented with regards to all of the challenges that everybody's faced, and, not least our own brands. It was, it's been talked about many times about the changes that we've had to make to our business. But I think outside of that, now, but crisis has become a BAU. We're operating in BAU. So I was talking to Sally just before you came on about, last week we spent most of our week talking about scenario planning for the traffic lights and, what would happen with regards to amber moving to green or vice versa, red to green, et cetera, et cetera. But that kind of operational thinking now has just become, just part of the new norm, if you like. The one thing I think that is the biggest challenge, and I think we've still got a way to go on this, is consumer confidence. And that for me is the number one issue that the industry has, and it's how do we as an industry, but also with the support of government and press, how do we extol the virtues of having a nice happy holiday compared to having to message all of the health and safety protocols and avoid the horror headlines that sell newspapers. So it's consumer confidence for me, and that's going to be a collective effort. And right now, I don't know that we can plot that. It's something that we're just going to have to manage as we go along.
I definitely agree with Lisa on that one. I think it's, the lack of clarity and uncertainty, and everything changes by the minute, right? And as soon as you think one thing, you wake up the next morning and something else has changed. So 100% is consumer confidence. And I think what we've tried to do as part of this is just really, make sure that our booking policies are flexible, they're risk-free, talk about, how people can change things if they need to and when they want to, and make sure we're there for our agents to help with those changes, and, with all the questions and concerns that come from the customers. And I think the other thing is around well-being and making sure that people feel comfortable that when they do get to travel, that they're going to be able to do so safely. And, they want to know what is it that we're implementing to make sure we're going to be looking after their health and their well-being whilst they're traveling.
Yeah, thanks for that, Donna. So, Sally, the biggie, difficult one to answer, but what's the latest on the Australia border opening? I know we've seen some sort of headlines circulating in the national media in the last few days. I don't know if you can give us any clarity. I don't know if there is anything actually confirmed, to be honest, but yeah, over to you to kind of update us on that one.
Well, I mean, everybody knows the Australian government's been very conservative with their management of the pandemic, and it has been working. The Australian population has, relatively speaking, come off unscathed so far, and they're determined to hold on to that position. So very much trying to suppress the virus in Australia as much as possible, which means that looking forward, I think the rollout of the vaccine in Australia is going to be very closely aligned to the building confidence to reopen international travel again. We've got one step forward, quarantine-free bubble between Australia and New Zealand started last month, and that is a good, I guess, optimistic start, and there is potential and talk about other travel bubbles starting to open up. So I do personally believe there won't be a ta-da moment where the borders are open. I think it'll be quite gradual, and it will be opening up in bubbles to destinations, or even to particular cohorts of people that may, be able to bear doing a few days in or a couple of weeks in quarantine, depending on what the restrictions are and so on.
Okay, so you don't know specifically a time frame just yet?
Absolutely. The government is not making any statements ahead. So a personal opinion, I would say it's looking likely that it won't be this year.
Okay, fair enough. But obviously there's loads and loads we can be doing in advance of that, yes, and getting people booking and excited about it, absolutely. Also, sorry, just very quickly on that, I don't suppose you know much about what entry requirements might be. Again, is that kind of all been quite closely guarded so far?
Closely guarded, but I mean, you've probably read it in the media. There is talk of various different sorts of accreditation with people who have been vaccinated and so on. So it's very similar conversations happening down there as are up here. Mm-hmm. And I actually think that as confidence builds up here and people start moving in the northern hemisphere, that will definitely give the Australian government confidence of what is possible as well.
Absolutely, and obviously with the traffic light announcement over here on Friday, I suppose whilst obviously we may not be able to yet enter Australia, it's all kind of good noises for consumer confidence. At least it's sort of being flagged as one of these safer destinations. So hopefully that's encouraging.
That's right.
As well. So Sally, kind of on a more sort of positive note, does Australia have any new attractions, accommodation, flight routes, new events and festivals that agents should be aware of? Very broad question again, I'm sure.
Well, and it's a very broad answer. As I was saying, because the industry's been doing relatively well down there, there has been a lot of announcements in the last year. So we're now publishing every month what we call our hot list. And you can find that on our corporate website or on the Aussie Specialist site. And it's basically a monthly announcement of any new opening, any experience development and so on. So there is a lot going on. And we've also had a few exciting announcements in the past year about big events that are coming up. We knew that the T20 World Cup cricket was going to be on next year. But in 2023, they've announced the FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand combined, and World Pride as well. So that's two big events in 2023 to look forward to. And beyond that, there's more in the calendar. So it's an optimistic runway looking over the next few years.
Brilliant. And I'm sure there's lots of information on that going on to the training platforms and all of that kind of thing. Sally, again, I'm not sure you'll be able to answer this, but we do have a question from Jilly just saying, do you think there's any chance of getting a UK bubble this year?
Once again, very much a personal opinion because there isn't a definitive government announcements, but I am very optimistic if destinations start to open up between here and the UK, it's almost like a stepping stone. So in the Australian media, there's been talk about potentially a bubble with Singapore. That would be great news for the next step heading over here. And once again, it's all going to come out of, I personally believe, confidence in the vaccine and whether that limits how much people will transmit the virus. So watch this space.
Yes, thanks for that, Sally. Donna, I don't know if you wanted to take a moment to run anyone who's not aware through some of the Travel Corporation's brands. I'm sure most people are very familiar, but also, whether you've expanded or added to the Australia product kind of in response to what Sally's been talking about, any new destinations, new opportunities there.
Yes, so thanks, Jennifer. So yes, I head up Cost Saver, Kentucky and Trafalgar for the UK, and today I'm also representing our sister brands Insight Vacations and AAT Kings. And I guess one of the most exciting developments for us at the moment as part of our 5-year sustainability strategy is that we've launched our new Make Travel Matter experiences. So these are conscious travel experiences that are available on many of our itineraries across our family of brands. And they've been chosen based on the positive social or environmental impact that they have on the communities and those that experience them. And they've been assessed against a set of criteria which are directly linked to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So, for example, with our Trafalgar brand, on one of our Connect with Local experiences, you can go to the Earth Sanctuary World Nature Centre and meet the Outback Brothers for dinner and hear all about the sustainable lifestyle they've established there. So for us, a huge development across all of our brands and something that we're very proud of. And then for our youth brand, Kentucky, we've got a number of developments. The first of which we've really, and something Sally touched on earlier, was around the domestic products. So Our counterparts in Australia have launched a range of trips out there, which they've been running for the past few months with sellout success, which has been great. And I think that's given us an opportunity to sort of really understand the challenges of operating post-COVID and how things will work moving forward. But we've also developed a great range of itineraries which we're hoping to bring to the UK market, including the Great Ocean Road trip and a Rottnest Island and Margaret River itinerary as well. And another thing we've launched for Kentucky is the sale of Australia working holiday visas in conjunction with our trips. And the big one for Kentucky, again on the sustainability theme, is that from the 1st of Jan 2020, all of our trips will be carbon neutral.
That sounds fab. Thanks very much for that. And Lisa, if you've got, similar question really for Gold Medal, have you made many changes in terms of what you're packaging up? Have you been aware that consumers are looking for anything different at the moment from their Australia holidays?
The volumes are understandably quite low at the moment, so it would be hard to call this out as a trend per se, but just to give you some insight into recent trading, which I think will just help context some of what we're seeing. So cruising pre-COVID accounted for about 4% of our revenue to Australia. But in the last 6 weeks, actually, that Cruise Plus program that we run has accounted for 40% of revenue. So there's certainly demand there for the cruise and stay, cruise and tour program. We've also seen a significant increase in premium cabin flying. That's gone into double digits, quite significant double digits of passengers booking business and first class, whereas ordinarily that would sit at a quite a low single percentage. And in terms of ground product, and I don't think this is a trend, as I say, and I don't think this is necessarily something that will happen for a long period of time, but recently we've seen a shift of room nights now going more share going into Sydney. Sydney would ordinarily account for somewhere between 30 to 40%, but now it's in excess of 60%. So there's been a significant swing there. And departure dates, really, just to give agents some insights into that. Our most popular departure date is February 2022. And I think that's just testament to the fact that people are hoping that the borders will open at least by January. So it just goes to confirm that pent-up demand, which we know is there. And that longer lead-in business is definitely there, that 2023. But as I say, that's mainly driven by cruise itineraries. So I also think that as we do see consumer confidence grow, we will start to see an increase in self-drive and motorhomes. And I think some of that is because, depending on how onerous it is to fly in and out of airports, people might want to avoid that, might want to avoid, lengthy queues at airports. So rather than doing multiple centres by air, they may well choose to do self-drive or motorhomes, which I know you're not going to see huge amount given the landmass of Australia, but I do think that's something that we'll see more people doing self-drive and motorhomes.
Interesting. And have you actually sort of tailored your product yet? Or are you kind of waiting to see where the demand falls for a bit longer before you sort of offer different?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's been a significant shift apart from in cruising. We absolutely have pivoted on that one. But, going back to what I said earlier, the demand is so low at the moment in terms of real bookings data that it would be wrong for us to say, right, okay, we're going to focus all of our attention in Sydney as an example. That's not the way to do it. So, going back to what we were talking about earlier, tourism's definitely not stood still in this last year. And, many of our partners and suppliers have developed their products, and just as Donna was saying as well, and established, new tours, new hotels. So the team are constantly evolving the product range. And the great thing is, obviously, Gold Medal has, we've got a great footprint in Australia, so and a great supplier base, so we can tick the box on all of these.
Yeah, interesting. And Donna, is that similar to you? I know you covered off quite a few of your kind of adaptations in the last time you spoke. But yeah, is it something that you're going to kind of keep an eye on, and you may see quite a few more changes in the year ahead before everyone starts traveling again?
Yeah, I think so. And as Lisa was saying, I think we're definitely seeing sort of longer trips. I think people having been cooped up for so long are just desperate to get away for as long as possible, especially, traveling as far as Australia. I think they really want to maximise their time there. I think we'll see a bit more sort of into sort of family travel as well. Generations wanting to travel together again, having not seen each other for so long. Obviously, we're evolving things in terms of operationally from a well-being perspective and kind of all the COVID considerations that we need. And I think, again, people wanting to try to travel a bit more sustainably, give back to the local areas that they're visiting, because I think, tourism has been hit hard. So I think people, when they are traveling, want to find, other ways and unique ways to give back. And I would also say, just in terms of experiences, people looking for those once in a lifetime opportunities, really wanted to treat themselves now, once they have the opportunity to be able to travel again.
Yeah. Are there any specifics you can tell us about around sort of health and safety measures? Obviously, that's just such a key part for everybody's programme going forward. Is there anything that you're already introduced or that you're looking at that will maybe be sort of as standard across your brands?
Yes, so we've been working closely with the World Travel and Tourism Council, and we've been awarded the WTTC Safe Stamp, and I think that's something, again, that people will be looking for when they're looking to book with suppliers and operators. We've really enhanced our wellbeing protocols and making sure that we're doing everything possible, and that we're obviously in line with any government guidelines, and working closely with the operations teams on the ground. I think we'll probably see a shift to sort of slightly smaller groups, and we're also offering private group options as well on many of our products, and we're definitely seeing that as a popular option, again, where you've got an extended family. And I think if people are travelling out to Australia to see family and friends, then they might take that opportunity to, as well as visit them, then their family and friends join them on a trip to maybe a part of Australia that they haven't visited before.
Yeah, interesting. Is that the same for you, Lisa? Again, I suppose not necessarily specific to Australia, but, have you got some key health and safety measures in place now going forward? It's obviously just going to be such the norm, isn't it?
For us, because obviously we pull other people's products together. For us, it's all about being able to communicate effectively what each of those different components, what the requirements are for all of those components. So even from entry requirements, we've invested and we launched on Friday a system that will pull back all of the entry requirements. So it starts from there. And then we are in a position where we can take the health and safety protocols of whether it's your airline, your hotel, etc., and then we can pass on that information. We don't run our own gold medal tours, so it's not for us to implement. It's for us to be able to communicate effectively what the health and safety protocols are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Sally, back to you. Feel free to comment on health and safety and COVID, but also I was just going to ask you about which markets you think are going to be the first to actually return to Australia.
Both Donna and Lisa have alluded to the VFR market. That is massive because of the strong ties between Australia and the UK. I think traditionally in a normal year it'd be over half of the visitors coming down to Australia will say that they're visiting friends and relatives. So Donna's suggestion of going down, meeting friends and relatives and then going on a holiday in Australia is our dream. And we do expect that motivation will mean that they will be very early returners. But then we're looking at certain cohorts like working holiday makers. That's probably a segment that will be also an early returner, and it's about how to motivate people now to sort of be thinking and planning, because whether it's a working holiday maker or someone who wants to go and visit a friend or relative, it's the lead time to plan. So the fact that Lisa's saying that they're getting long lead times on bookings is of no surprise. I feel that there is so much pent-up demand that people just want to put their money down and have something to look forward to and plan for.
Absolutely. I know certain destinations in the Caribbean perhaps have offered sort of visas to go and live and work remotely from there. I mean, is that something Australia would consider?
Not at this stage. I think the conservative approach from the government probably makes that there's probably quite a few barriers to that thinking. But I mean, on the health and safety element, I think one thing about Australia as a destination is it's always been a familiar destination for this market, but potentially the way the pandemic has been handled in the last year. Every time I say something like this, I feel like I need to touch wood though, because it's such a volatile situation. But I think people will feel safe there because it has been so conservatively monitored and controlled, and the testing and tracing and everything, protocols that are in the country are relatively robust. So I'm sure it will feel a safe destination to visit.
Brilliant. And just before we come on to our section, sort of looking at trends specifically, just a reminder, everybody to feel welcome to ask questions in the Q&A, and we will come to those as and when. That's brilliant. Sally, I'm sorry to keep pinpointing you. We have obviously already covered quite a lot off in terms of trends, but was there anything else you wanted to add as we kind of talk more widely about what we can expect, whether sort of you think consumers' desires have changed, whether they'll be looking for different kind of holiday in Australia going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much aligned with the thinking of both that both Lisa and Donna have been saying around the growing conscious traveller who's concerned about sustainability when they travel. We actually do every 6 months we do consumer research up here just to see what interests people and how important those sorts of factors are. The appeal in Australia is the wide open spaces, and I guess after a year of in and out of lockdown, that is very compelling now. It's the nature, reconnecting with nature and wildlife and so on. But I also think so much about travel is connecting with people, and in the last round of research, we asked how important Indigenous tourism is as a factor for choosing the destination, and we got very positive insights out of the UK market. People are very interested, and that's great for our Aboriginal tour operators, and it's a great way to have a distinctly Australian experience included in an itinerary. So I'd say that would be an emerging trend, and we're going to be putting the spotlight on that in the year ahead.
Okay, interesting. Lisa, I know that you were sort of crunching some data before this call. I know you've already run through some of it, but was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of sort of trends and booking processes and anything different we might expect?
I think just one thing I'm just also conscious of is that I've talked about a long lead in, but I actually think there's going to be a huge opportunity that when we do get an indication of when the borders will open, we'll see a surge in bookings. Now that could be depending on what the lead in is between communicating the borders opening and then them actually opening. So I think and that's for a lot of destinations. If we look at last year, as soon as a country went on the green list and it was literally available the week after, we saw a huge spike in demand. And I think the other thing I would just also call out is, the Financial Times a few weeks ago reported that Brits had amassed an additional, I think it was £180 billion worth of savings during lockdown and COVID. So there's money there sat in saving pots in bank accounts. And, Australia, I think, could and will be a destination that benefits from those savings that have been amassed. But one of the other things I think we also need to be mindful of is if one of the KPIs that the government is using with regards to understanding what destinations are on the green list, we do also need to keep an eye on that immunisation rate in Australia, because right now there's very few cases, and there's definitely been a correlation between destinations that have handled the COVID situation with minimal negative PR impact, and they've been bolstered by bookings. We saw that certainly with that's been true of the Maldives. So it's just one thing I think just to call out is if that is a KPI that the government are using, the immunisation rates in Australia do need to scale up a little bit as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, isn't there? It's kind of, as we found on Friday, it's all very well our government sort of making announcements, but there's so much to consider about the destination as well and what's happening there. Somebody called Jules Taylor has commented saying, especially with the Ashes due to take place, there is a lot of interest. So yeah, that's maybe something you can touch upon, Sally. I think you possibly already have. Yeah, Donna, you know, do you think you're going to see much change in the way that tour operators sort of actually deliver bookings? Do you think there'll be different kind of policy requirements? I know a lot of operators have already made changes, and presumably you guys might have as well. How do you see that kind of landscape settling down?
Yeah, I think flexible booking policies are here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future, and that's something that we introduced early on across all of the TTC brands. I think the other thing that both agents and consumers will be looking for is ABTA and atoll protection. I think that's something that, again, has really been at the forefront of the media and the press, you know, with sadly a number of operators going under. And I think those protections give you know, the customer and the agent some security about those bookings. However, I do think that overall, especially at the moment, people just want to be inspired. So I think whilst, you know, flexible booking conditions comes further down the funnel, the booking funnel, I think what we need to do is continue to inspire both our agent community and educate and also our, you know, direct markets, because that's what they want right now. It's something to look forward to. And when they are able to travel, they want to go out and have, you know, the trip of a lifetime. So I think building experiences that really are unique, you know, things like with AAT Kings, we have our exclusive access to the Field of Lights at sunrise, you know, something you can't do with anyone else, and something that will make a trip truly memorable. And then hopefully for our agents mean that, you know, they get repeat business because people have had such a fantastic trip. So for me, you know, we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to keep on inspiring about destinations, because ultimately that is what, you know, encourages people to book in the first place. And then I think if you back that up with flexible booking conditions, great customer service, then I think that's a really good combination.
Yeah, brilliant. Quite a wide question here that we had on our list is, what do you expect for the future of travel to Australia? Sally, maybe that's one for you. I suppose, I don't know if you have figures to hand on, you know, the kind of strength of the UK market and whether that's something that you expect to grow much, I suppose, beyond just the next year, but into the sort of next 5 years or so.
We, at Tourism Australia, we refer to the UK as one of our star markets. At the end of 2019, it was our 4th largest for visitation and 3rd largest for spend out of all of our international markets. It's really important. I think with the close ties between the two countries, that won't go away, and the VFR market will sort of lead the push, but we expect the holiday travellers to follow. I really hope that this experience of having so much restrictions around our movement in the last year will mean that people really value travel, and the idea of maybe less frequent but longer, really immersive trips lead themselves to a destination like Australia rather than multiples of fly and flop and so on. So I think Australia, as I said before, has a lot to offer with its wide open spaces, and the idea for me right now of just hitting the road and driving up the east coast of Australia is bliss, and I'm sure that that's the sort of mindset which will encourage people to do those long, deep dives.
Yeah, definitely. Anything to add on that, Lisa or Donna? Quite a wide one. We've already covered off.
Sally's stolen all of my lines there. But just a couple, picking up on a couple of things that Donna said there about the flexible booking policies. You know, there's multiple consumer research that's been done over the last few months, and actually, what the 3 elements that come out here, I'm just jotted these down, are not necessarily in this order, but flexible booking policy, financial stability of the operator or agent that you're booking with, and health and safety protocols. And on a positive note, price isn't in the top 3 indicators. Now, I've never known in my 30-something year career where price hasn't been in the top 3 in terms of consideration points. So that's a fantastic opportunity for all of us, because Australia is not a cheap destination to get to. So that's good. Combined with, as I mentioned earlier, that comment in the Financial Times about the savings that have been amassed. And I would endorse everything that Sally said there. I think we know that there's pent-up demand. It's just that when will the borders open so that people have got a bit more security there, security in terms of knowing when they can book, and it's not going to end up being cancelled or deferred or etc. etc.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something, Donna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I guess, from the youth perspective, and it was something Sally alluded to earlier, I think there's definitely going to be a rise in gap year travel and working holiday visas once the opportunity is there. And from some of the research we've done at Kentucky, over half of 18 to 25-year-olds said they were considering a year abroad or a gap year once they were able to. So I think, again, demand is high. As soon as they're able, I think that's something that's going to be high on the list. Students have had to defer university places, graduate schemes have been cancelled, and other people have just reassessed their, priorities and decided, actually, before I go into the working life, I want to go off and do some travelling. And I think Australia is, a perfect place to do that. So I definitely think we'll see a rise in youth travel in that respect.
Just add into that, we've had conversations internally. I know, Sally, you and I spoke about this some time ago about accrued leave as well, because there's an awful lot of organisations that have allowed their employees to accrue leave and to accrue it again and carry it off over the course of 3 years. So definitely that increase in average trip length, I think, is something that lends itself well to travelling to Australia.
Yeah, brilliant. And also, just to very quickly touch upon what you said, Lisa, in terms of people having more disposable income, I think you said you've already detected people kind of going for the premium seats and sort of treating themselves. So not only just Australia itself, but potentially spending more money overall in terms of what they actually do whilst they're there, which is good news for agents and destinations alike and operators alike. We have quite a specific question here. I'm not sure whether anyone is able to answer it. It says, do you know the requirements for New Zealand residents for Australia and New Zealand? I don't know if anybody knows that one. Don't worry if you don't.
Is that meaning travelling between the two?
I think so, yeah.
Because at the moment we're quarantine-free travel between the two destinations, so residents in both countries can go back and forth.
Yeah,
if that's what it means.
It's quite. Yeah. We'll move on from that one. Okay, so I just wanted to give you all an opportunity. We're already coming to the end of our 45 minutes. We've got about 5 minutes left. But in terms of Donna and Lisa, kind of anything, well, actually, all of you as well, Sally as well at Tourism Australia, so specific things available to travel agents, really. Are there any new online training opportunities, fam trips in the pipeline, booking incentives, competitions, all of that kind of thing? Sally, I don't know if you want to kick off just with it.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned the Aussie Specialist Program earlier, and one of the big projects we've been working on in the last year is revamping the whole platform, and we'll be launching that in the second half of this year. And we're building an online summit for travel agents around that launch as well. So it's going to have a lot more interactive and dynamic content, and lots of different levels depending on people's expertise. So that's really exciting, because that's going to make a big difference. And then, of course, as soon as travel restrictions are lifted, there's nothing better than experiencing the destination for yourself. So we'll get back on track with our FAMIL program and try and get as many people out as we can.
Brilliant, that's good to know. I know that they're always very, very popular, those ones. Donna, how about you over at TTC? Have you got much in the pipeline for agents?
Yeah, so I think we'll continue to do our webinars that we've been hosting throughout the pandemic, virtual events. That's a new series that we're launching from this week, and we'll continue to sort of run over the next few months. We have a number of agent discounts that agents can apply for, so they can come through to myself or my colleague Becky. And we're really sort of just making sure that we're updating offers and everything on our Facebook groups, or at thetouringhub.com, which is where we keep a lot of our social assets and videos that agents can repurpose for their own channels.
Brilliant. And Lisa, over to you.
Yeah, well, I guess for us, I mean, it starts with this week with Aussie Fest. You know, this is a fantastic opportunity, because I do think, you know, you can suffer from out of sight, out of mind. And so this for me is a brilliant opportunity. We're given the chance to win a holiday of a lifetime away. I need to plug that one as well, in conjunction with Emirates and some of our key supply partners. But all of the good stuff that we used to do, we will be continuing to do so when the time's right. And I think, you know, Australia is such an important destination for us from being really honest, from a revenue and a margin point of view. We can't afford to take our eye off the ball here. So it will be in our weekly and our monthly newsletters, promos, etc., etc. I think what we will see, though, is our speed to market will be much quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in terms of people at sort of shorter booking windows and things.
Yeah, that, but also our communication. You know, over the course of the pandemic, we've just learned to communicate. It's taken a crisis to get to this point, but we've just learned to communicate more effectively. We've got a weekly roundup, and our social media pages have got a phenomenal following. So, you know, keep abreast of Gold Medal's Facebook page, and you know, and we're putting content on there which is easily shareable as well. And of course, we're not B2C in any way, so we don't want our brand out there. You know, the travel agent is the brand that we're utilising.
Yeah, brilliant. We have about 4 minutes left. I just wanted to ask if any of you have any kind of closing remarks that you'd like to make. Yeah, any sort of last observations that you haven't managed to cover off yet. No problem if you don't. But...
Well, I would love to say that the tactic that we adopted a year ago to keep the lights on, for want of a better expression, has actually been really worthwhile in this market. Lisa's right, there's so much pent-up demand, the household savings and so on. We've managed the engagement from our just media activity with consumers in this market has been very heartening, and we believe that it's not out of sight, out of mind with Australia. And as a tourism board, we're sort of lining up all of these various different tactics to be ready to go with as little notice as possible. So as soon as we do hear any notice about travel restrictions lifting, we will be broadcasting them far and wide.
Brilliant. Anything from you guys, Donna and Lisa? I know we've already covered off an awful lot, so no problem.
I mean, I think really we're just excited to be able to get to a point where we can start to send people back out to Australia, and I think that's the same, you know, for the whole industry really, is to just get people travelling again. So excited for when that time comes, and in the meantime, we're here to help and support as much as we can.
And finally, from me, mine's just a big thank you, really. I know Sally and I have been having regular video catch-ups throughout the course of the last year. And, you know, to every single agent out there, keep smiling. It will get better. And thank you for all of your support.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, guys. That's gone really, really quickly. We've already got to the end of our session. But thanks so much to Lisa McCauley from Gold Medal, Sally Cope from Tourism Australia, and Donna Dewson from the Travel Trade Corporation. You guys have been fantastic. Thanks so much. We now have a short break. So if everybody would like to go and grab themselves a cup of tea and return at 3:10 for Selling Australia in 2021. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.